What is going on, everyone? Today I'm going to be giving you a spoiler-free review for Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. So I just got done watching all of the prior Mad Max films. Of course, I did see Fury Road about 2 years ago. All those I have reactions for on this channel. I did not upload Beyond Thunderdome yet, but I will be uploading that really soon. But I decided to see Furiosa in theaters in IMAX because, I mean, this is definitely the type of movie to see in IMAX. I did not get to see Fury Road in IMAX, of course, but if they were ever to show it again in theaters, I would be there day one for sure. I think they might have re-shown it a few months ago. Someone said that, but I'm not 100% sure. Unfortunately, I just didn't get a chance to see it. But that is, again, these are type of movies that I feel like that sort of theatrical experience is kind of necessary. And I gotta say, Furiosa, it was definitely necessary. So as always, we're gonna go through all my positives, then the negatives, and then we'll give the movie a rating out of 10. So starting off with the positives, the movie looks incredible. Like, just like Fury Road, George Miller just knows how to make a damn movie. He knows how to make one visually look impeccable in terms of how the scenes are shot, like not just in terms of just, you know, pure visuals, but when you're talking about the different action sequences or just the way the camera moves around, it just always looks so incredible. You could always tell exactly what's going on, you know exactly where characters are placed at what time, and the way they cut between different scenes, it's just really fluid. And to me, it's just, there's not a single moment where I felt like anything felt clunky or odd. Everything just felt as perfect as it needed to be. One of my favorite things about the visuals in this, which also of course is, you know, the same thing in Fury Road, is the color palette. Like, the colors just look fantastic. I've never seen colors pop more in a movie than in Fury Road and now in Furiosa. Everything just looks so gorgeous. And again, I think getting that theatrical experience, you're gonna get to see those colors a lot more than you probably would watching it at home on your screen, or what a lot of people are probably gonna do. They're probably gonna watch it on their phone or something when it comes out online. But I really think this type of movie you really need to see in the theaters. In terms of the story, this is very different than Fury Road as well. I'm gonna be comparing it a lot to Fury Road. It just makes sense to do that, obviously, but it's very different because it's not as much of a, you know, just long 2-hour chase movie. That's kind of what Fury Road is. It's just a lot of action nonstop. There's a couple moments where the characters, you know, talk for a bit, but a lot of it is just pure action chasing, and that's awesome. But this movie is very different because it is more of a personal story for Furiosa, and it actually spans over her entire like childhood, really. Like, it goes throughout a decent amount of her as a kid, and then of course her becoming, you know, an adult, and that's who, you know, Anya Taylor-Joy plays later in the film. But it actually shows a lot of her story, and it's a very personal journey because, you know, obviously terrible things happen to her. She's taken away from her home, and her main motivation this whole movie is getting back home. But her motivations change a bit, turn a little more into wanting revenge as opposed to just wanting to get back home. So, you know, if you've seen Fury Road, you know what is going to end up happening with this character later on anyways. But just seeing the journey here, specifically revolving around wanting revenge, it is really damn well written, especially because the way they have to deliver it is so interesting, because these characters don't talk a lot. This is not a dialogue heavy movie, especially with Anya Taylor-Joy's Furiosa. She does not talk that much in this movie. Like, I can't think of many scenes where she's talking, but all of her, you know, acting is within her facial expressions and her mannerisms. You can feel the amount of just anger and sadness and frustrations just in her, and then of course getting to see her unleash that on these characters is just really awesome. Then of course you have Chris Hemsworth's character. His name is Dementis. He is of course playing the villain here, and he is probably one of my favorite villains I've seen in a movie in a while, and I would say this is the best performance from Chris Hemsworth I have ever seen, literally ever. This villain is just, he's all over the place, man. He's just, in a good way though, he's all over the place in a good way, because he's not your typical villain where everyone respects him. Like, not everyone does respect him. He's a very goofy guy. He talks funny, but at the same time, he is terrifying and will do some awful things to you just for exit. Like, he will do awful things for power. That's basically his whole thing. He wants as much power as possible. He wants also just, you know, as much supplies as he can have for his people, but he doesn't really care about his people. He will, you know, kill them whenever he wants if it's going to help him in the long run, but he just wants all of this so he can stay protected, so he can be safe. And they do so many interesting things with that because they actually show us a lot in this world. So Fury Road I loved a lot, don't get me wrong, but the movie doesn't do too much in terms of like world building. It doesn't really show you all the different locations. It talks about them, don't get me wrong, it talks about them, but it never shows you them. This movie shows you these locations. You get to see the Bullet Farm, Gastown, you get to see the Citadel again, which of course was already in Fury Road, but getting to see these locations and getting to see how they operate, you learn so much about this world. And then of course how it plays into the role of Dementus's character, him wanting power over these different locations because of, you know, the really important supplies that they're making, was a really entertaining part of the story. There's another character named Jack that Furiosa meets at some point in this movie, and it's actually a really solid side character. I wasn't expecting them to throw in this really good side character that actually has a lot of depth and a lot of good scenes. And there's one action scene in particular with both of them that I think is one of the most insane things I've seen in an action movie in a long time. It is so cool, and I don't want to say anything else. I don't want to spoil anything, but it is just crazy how well made it was. And again, go see it in theaters, definitely. The pacing is also really good. I'm not gonna lie, by the time the movie ended, I thought we were only like an hour into the movie. Like, I'm not even joking. That's not something I usually say for movies. I feel like I usually have a good mental clock going on in my head where I'm like, okay, we're probably at the end now. I had no idea we were at the end. Like, I had no idea we were about to be at the final points of the movie. And it's a long movie. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes or so. And I felt like we were maybe an hour and 10 minutes into it. And I was like, wait, really? It's going to end already? Like, it made sense that it was ending. The way the story was structured, it made sense. But I really did feel like we weren't that far in the movie because it's so well paced. Not in a, you know, it's too fast or it's too slow way. Like, it's neither of those. It's not too slow. It's not too fast. It is the perfect pacing. It has moments to breathe with the characters. It has a lot of good, you know, scenes that are just characters, again, breathing, you know, those are important. But it also has a lot of fast-paced action scenes, and it has a lot of just, you know, it shoots through the scenes fast enough to keep you engaged. But like I said, by the time the movie was over, I was like, damn, like I was not expecting it to be over already. In general, this just works really well as a prequel. I saw some people asking, if you haven't seen Fury Road, should you watch that before seeing this? And I'm gonna say yes, because it does kind of play off of Fury Road quite a bit, and having the knowledge of Fury Road is gonna help you in this movie. But also on the flip side, having the knowledge of this movie will also help you understand Fury Road better. So I think you could watch them in either order. The only thing is, if you do watch it in that order, Furiosa first, don't watch the end credits. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but just don't watch the end credits if you haven't seen Fury Road and you want to see it, because it will probably spoil Fury Road a little bit. But now let's get into the negatives, because I do have like 2 things here. They're really not that big though. I'm gonna be honest. They're not huge things. They're kind of minor problems I have with it. But so the first one, I'm gonna try my best to say it without spoiling anything. The movie does have a lot of action, which is great. I love all the action that is there. It is solid. But there is one conflict in this movie that they do kind of skip over. I'm not going to go into detail what that conflict is, but they kind of just skip it. They kind of skip it with this little, like, I don't know, 30-second montage. And I get why they skipped it. In the context of the movie, you can understand why they skipped it. But I feel like they should have reworked it in a way to at least show us some of this conflict, because getting to see that conflict, I think, would have added a lot to the final moments of the movie. And I'm not going to lie, them skipping over that conflict was enough to drop this rating down like a half a star. So it was one of those things where it was like, I really feel like seeing that would have added so much to the movie, not just from an entertainment perspective and getting to see all the crazy action, of course, but also for those final moments, for the final 20 minutes of this movie. Those moments would have been so much more impactful if we saw the kind of build up to that with this specific conflict I'm referring to. Again, I'm trying not to spoil it, but when you watch the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. I wish they showed us a little bit of it, because I was getting really excited to see that. I was like, holy shit. And then it's just kind of skipped over, and I'm like, I don't know. I always hate when movies and shows skip over things. It could have been a budget thing. I'm sure this movie's already a really high budget. It already has so much going on, so much action, so much insanity. But to me, it's equivalent to like The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Like, imagine that one scene when everyone's lined up with the horses and you're getting all excited. And then it's just kind of like the next day, and it's like, oh, we just don't show what happens after that. Like, to me, that's how it felt. You know what I mean? And regardless of the rest of the movie having a lot of action, I feel like just getting to see that, even if it was just like a 5-minute scene, I think it would have been enough to push the movie up to a 5-star rating. Unfortunately, so it's, again, not the biggest thing in the world, but to me it was enough to hold the movie back just a little bit. And also, this is kind of a nitpick, but I do feel like Tom Hulkenberg's soundtrack here is not nearly as good as Fury Road's, and I was really excited because his soundtrack in Fury Road is one of my favorite action soundtracks of all time. And he does have some good music in this movie, don't get me wrong, but it's not nearly as amazing and not nearly as epic and just incredible as his Fury Road soundtrack. A lot of it is just reused music as well, and they don't reuse it in like an interesting way. It's kind of just the same music. So I feel like they could have done something a little bit better there. Tom Hulkenberg is an incredible composer. He's done some amazing work, but I do feel like this specific movie, he could have done a little bit better with it. I think just a tiny bit better, just a couple more. And I'm not sure if it was necessarily his fault. Maybe the scenes just didn't call for a more of an interesting soundtrack, but I don't know. I personally felt like there was a couple scenes that could have had it. There was a couple moments that I loved it, don't get me wrong. That's why I'm calling this a nitpick. But I just feel like compared to Fury Road, it's just like, it's not as good. With that being said, giving this movie a rating, it's a pretty easy 9.4 out of 10 for me. And like I said, if those two negatives did not exist, I would probably give this like a 9.8, 9.9. Like it would be one of the best movies of all time. I really feel like it just needed that. And I think it would have been a bit higher, but it's still an incredible movie. This is definitely my favorite movie of the year thus far. Yes, I like it more than Dune Part 2. That might be a surprise to some people, but personally I do. I think this movie just interests me a little bit more. I think it entertained me a little bit more. Therefore, I would call it a better movie than Dune Part 2. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. I want to hear what you think about this film. If you have seen it, if you haven't, are you going to go see it? Peace out, everyone.